Hello BookTube, welcome back to my 2026 library tour. Today I'm starting with An American Marriage by Taori Jones. I just recently picked this novel up, so I have not read it yet. Next is by Fatty Judah. This poetry collection is pretty good. It's been a while since I last read it and was shortlisted for the National Book Award in Poetry a few years ago. I think 2 years ago. And I think An American Marriage won the Women's Prize a few years ago, although it's not on the cover. The Seven Moons of Molly Almeida by Shehan Kronatalaka. This won the Booker Prize in 2022 and is a novel about a gay photographer in Sri Lanka who is murdered at the beginning of the novel and whose spirit has to figure out who murdered him and then pass on into the afterlife. It's a very weird novel that is incredibly effective up until the very end when it becomes more genre fiction than it had been. It's been quite a while since I last read it, though. I think I read it in like 2023 or something. Or maybe very late 2022. So the next batch of books are by Yasunari Kawabata, starting with The Sound of the Mountain. This is a family drama that's quite good. It's been quite a while since I last read it and was translated by Edward G. Seidensticker, who won the 1971 National Book Award in Translation for his translation of this novel. And I think a good chunk of these are from Seidensticker. I also have The Old Capital. Who built it? So this is a novel set in Kyoto. And I think it's historical fiction. Okay, this is actually translated from the Japanese by J. Martin Holman. And it's been a very long time since I've read this. About over 15 years, I think. House of the Sleeping Beauties and Other Stories by Yasunari Kawabata. This is a Seidensticker translation. Thousand Cranes, again a Seidensticker translation. This is about a young man who takes up with his father's old lovers, while one of those old lovers is trying to set up a marriage with another young woman who has no relation to any of this. And then the young man has an affair with the other former lover's daughter. It's a really good novel. It's been far too long since I last read this. Far too long. Beauty and Sadness. So this is translated by Howard Hibbett, of course from the Japanese. And the last Kawabata novel I have is The Master of Go, which is a light fictionalization of a famous Go match from the late 1930s that Kawabata covered. This is a fantastic work, and is translated from the Japanese by Seidensticker. So, with the exception of Thousand Cranes, which I had as a teenager, that was my first Kawabata novel. The rest of my Kawabata collection came because I had a professor who taught a Japanese class, and I did a paper on Thousand Cranes, and he had a number of, I guess, doubles of these old mass market paperbacks of Kawabata's work. So he gifted them to me at the end of the semester, and I've treasured them ever since. Sticking with Japan, this is Breast and Eggs by Mieko Kawakami, translated from the Japanese by Sam Bett and David Boyd, and it won the Kutagawa Prize. So this is about family relationships. I just recently picked it up and I haven't gotten to it yet. Yeah. Moving back to poetry. Punk's newest selected poems by John Keene. This won the National Book Award in Poetry a few years ago, and it's a pretty good collection. I rather enjoyed it. Collected Poems by Jane Kenyon. This is a really good collection. I discovered Kenyon's work through the Autumn House of Contemporary American Poetry over here, and I wanted to get more of her work, so I went with the collected poems, and it's really good. Earthly Conditions by Burhan Keskin, translated from the Turkish by Oyku Tekten. This is a collection of poetry from world poetry, and I have some issues with this collection, but I will reread it at some point. We are being invaded by bugs. Okay, moving on. Next is the Poisonwood Bible. The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. This is, I think, the novel that brought her to prominence, if not her first novel. It's about a family who take up missionary work in Africa. Have not read it yet. It's just recently that I picked it up and added it to my collection. Back to poetry with More Than This by David Kirby. I picked this up a few years ago. It's not a poetry collection I'm all that fond of. The Nightgown and Other Poems by Taisha Kitayskaya. So this is a poetry collection that I just recently picked up and am thinking about reading sometime in the near future. Possibly today. This is one of my favorite poetry collections. It's Hosts and Guests by Nate Klug. This is the only poetry collection of Nate Klug's that I have. I wish he would publish more. This is a wonderful collection. Dien Kaidao by Yusef Komonyaka. So this is a poetry collection inspired by Komonyaka's time in Vietnam. It is quite powerful. Eurotrash by Christian Krocht, translated from the German by Daniel Bowles. This novel was longlisted for the Booker International Prize last year and was one of the novels that kind of really attracted me, although I have not yet read it. I added it to my collection a few months ago. The Melancholy of Resistance by Laszlo Krasznahorkai. Just recently added this to my collection. I wanted to try his work out. The Curve of Things by Kathy Cremens. This is a collection that I picked up a few years ago and isn't one I'm particularly fond of. Immortality by Milan Kundera, translated from the Czech, I believe. By Peter Kusi. So I've been meaning to read Milan Kundera for a very long time, and I have still not gotten around to doing it. The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri. This is a novel about the Indian immigrants to the United States and their relationship with their son, who is curiously named Gogol. I have unfinished business with this novel. Bonefire Opera by Danusha Lamaris. I have to say, I didn't particularly get on with this collection, but I will revisit it at some point. Crooked Little Heart by Anna Lamott. This is about a young woman who is a teenage tennis player, and it's about her and her family drama. I have unfinished business with this novel. Philip Larkin, or Collected Poems by Philip Larkin. This collection took me quite a while to finally get into, but I finally did. Perfection by Vincenzo Latronico, translated from the Italian. By Sophie Hughes. So this is a novel about an Italian couple living in Berlin who basically work as freelance web designers. And the novel looks at their space, their life, in a very interesting way. The character development, the plot development is based on description more than on action or dialogue. And it is very fascinating how that happened. It took me some time to get into it. Perfection was, I think, shortlisted for last year's Booker International. I think just longlisted for last year's National Book Award in Translated Literature. So I picked it up sometime between the two, I think. And tried it, didn't get on with it. Although I thought the idea was neat. And then in November or early December, I tried it again and got on with it and really liked it on that Bell Redemption. So sometimes unfinished business works out. Next is Collected Stories by David Levitt. This is currently the only Levitt I have in my collection. I really need to make a point of collecting more of his work, or collecting more of his work back, because I had quite a bit of his work in my 20s, but I got rid of it and I would like it back. Another novel with which I have some unfinished business, The Surrendered by Chang-Ra Lee. This is a novel that looks at Korean War refugees living in the United States and kind of their relationships, along with a veteran of the Korean War. It's been a while since I tried it, so I'm a bit fuzzy, and I have unfinished business with this novel. So the next two books are by Philip Levine. First is What Work Is, which won the National Book Award for Poetry back in the 90s. Really great collection. Really, really great collection. I just recently picked up The Simple Truth. So I will be reading this at some point in the future. Bees and After by John Lyles. This came out last year as part of the Yale Younger Poets series. It is pretty good. The poems are all based around scientific subjects, and some of them are a bit difficult to get or to understand, but I liked it. Lucky Wreck by Ada Limon. So I think this is a 15th anniversary edition of her first collection of poetry, which came out from Autumn House, which at the time I picked this up was distributed by the University of Chicago Press. It's been a while since I last read this, so I would like to revisit it, and I really would like to pick up more of Limon's work. Dear Miss Schubert by Ewa Lipska, translated from the Polish by Robin Davidson, and Ewa Elizbieta Nowoskowska. I'm pretty sure I butchered Miss Novakovska's last name. My apologies. So this is a collection of poetry by Yuva Lipska. It is part of the Lockhart Library of Poetry and Translation from Princeton University Press. What they do, or at least the more recent ones, because I don't think the Cavaphy, which is an older one, or Sepharis, which we'll get to next week, are both older, so they don't have the kind of the Polish original on the the even numbered pages, and the English translation on the odd numbered pages. But this collection took me some time to get into, but I rather liked it when I did finally read it. And so the final poems on this shelf are by one of my favorite poets, Anne-Marie Macari. Starting with Ivory Cradle. This won the APR Honickman First Book Prize. So this is her debut collection of poetry, and it is wonderful. Her second collection is Gloryland. Also really good. My favorite collection of hers is She Heads into the Wilderness, which is the first collection of hers that I read. This is just glorious. Red Deer, also really good. And Open Heaven. So I have her most recent poetry collection. I hauled it I hauled it late last month. American, which is currently in the book haul books. So once I rearrange my this part of my library, I will add the next American to the rest of Anne-Marie Macari. So that wraps up this middle shelf of bookcase number 2. Tomorrow I will be having to sit down to do the the 4th and 5th shelves. I will have to be sitting down for that. And then I may end up having to have to think of something else for the 3rd and final bookcase. So I'm not entirely sure filming from this location is going to work out. I will be thinking about that for the next few days. Anyway, BookTube, until I see you again, thank you and have a great morning.